Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and I'm honored to host this daily conversation as we try to understand three crises happening across the world: the health crisis, the economic crisis, and the racial inequality crisis. Today, it all comes to a head with our 115th episode on America's birthday, Independence Day, July 4th. We are talking about what America means to me, and it's episode 115. On this most unprecedented of July 4th holidays, let's reflect on what America means to us, including what it means to non-Americans. And you can submit your video and join us if you go to flipgrid.com and type in Sree July 4 or flipgrid.com/Sree July 4. Please tag your friends, please hit share so people can join us from around the world. We are so pleased to have you with us and want to hear from you. You can post your comments here or you can send us a video. Flipgrid.com/Sree July 4. We want to hear from you. We have two fabulous guests who are with us who will share their experiences, their work, their life, but will also reflect on what America means to them. We'll be joined by Professor Chetachi Egwu, Dr. Chetachi Egwu. At Tachiada is her Twitter handle. She's a filmmaker and professor. We're also joined by Rahadyan Sastrowardoyo, who is RT at RT Sastrowardoyo. He's a caregiving expert. He's a former New York Timesian who was there for 22 years before he took a buyout and went into the field of caregiving. And we will listen to you, all of you. Please share right now with your friends and family. We are so grateful to all of you. We'll be meeting our two guests in just a few minutes. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree, and I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. Right now, I'm on Fire Island, where I'm here with my family as we're on lockdown here after being on lockdown in New York City. We're about 60 miles away from New York City, and we're here locked down on the beach instead of being locked down in the city. And in the distance, I can still hear fireworks as they go on across Long Island. We're an island off of Long Island near New York City. And we're starting late tonight at 10 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. Eastern so that people could watch the fireworks on television and elsewhere and then join us. Of course, for some of you, this is just another Sunday in the world, or already, late Saturday for you, or already Sunday morning and just another Sunday. We'll also hear some videos from people who have sent us their thoughts, and we want to hear from you. Tell us where you're watching from, and please type in, and we will read those comments to our guests. And as always, we're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. If you are friends on those platforms, please tell them to watch, and please tag them as we have this very special conversation. We're only able to have this conversation because of all of you. To everyone who's written in for these last 115 days and called this a special part of your lockdown. Some of you have said this is a lifeline. Some of you have said this is such a helpful show. I want to tell you that it's helpful to me, that it's a lifeline to me, that I have learned so much from all of you. Thank you so much. Please check out our archives, youtube.com/Sreenet, SREENET, and you can see our entire collection of videos there. Now, let me tell you a little bit about, send you some messages from our sponsors, and then we will get started. So we have to start by thanking our sponsor, Global Entrepreneurship Experience from Rutgers. It's a teen camp, a virtual teen camp. There are 2 duplicate ones, and your teenagers or someone you know who's a teenager can benefit, and 20% off with the code SREE, globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org, globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org, 20% off with the code SREE. Please tell your friends right now, take a screenshot or share it with them. We also want to thank our friends at Muckrack Academy for arranging for me to make Fundamentals of Social Media, a free certification course now available, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Your friends and family anywhere in the world can take it. 4,000 people have started the course, and we're so excited. And I know that I learned a lot doing it, and many others have said so as well. Here is an example of the certificate you get. You can put it on your LinkedIn, and it's signed by me and Greg Gallant, who is the CEO and co-founder of MuckRack. So the address is mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. The weekends are busy around here because we have this show on Saturday night, and then we have our Sunday night show, which we want to tell you about. It's our positivity show, and it's positivity with the Krybicks. We will be meeting Dr. Arti Krybik, who's running for Congress in Tuesday's New Jersey primary election, and Dr. Thomas Krybik, who's a neurologist. So we'll hear from Arti about what it's like to run for Congress, what is her message. She's running against a fellow Democrat who is someone who has voted with the president 76% of the time, and someone who is the most supportive of President Trump at this moment. That's a fascinating person to run against, and Arti will be here to talk about that. And her husband, Dr. Thomas Krybik, will talk about the medical aspects of this crisis and everything that's going on. The weekend also means the Sunday New York Times read-along, where we read the New York Times out loud. We've been doing that for 5 years, like crazy people. And we're joined by Trish Hall, former editor of the New York Times op-ed page. What a fabulous guest. She will tell us about her book, Writing to Persuade, and share some secrets of what it's like to run the world's most famous and most influential opinion page in the New York Times. That's 8:30 a.m. tomorrow on Sunday, New York time, and I hope you will be able to join us. And we also had, as we always do on Saturday, we hosted our weekly show called Coping with COVID, a helpful, hopeful call-in show on WBAI radio here in New York. And it's very different to host a radio show as opposed to a web show. But we are very grateful to our guests on that show. We've been doing that for 15 straight weeks as well. And now let's bring on our guests. We'll talk to them. We'll talk to you. Tell us what America means to you. Even if you're not American, write it down and tell us. Or you can send us a greeting by going to this link. Let me just show you how this works. You go to flipgrid.com/Sree July 4. Let me just show you here. You go to Sree July 4, and you just, I'm just showing you the QR code. If you're a QR code person, you can use this. Flipgrid.com/Sree July 4, and it'll allow you to record a 60-second video, and you can join us. It's not too late, even though we started the show. If you're watching a recording, you can still record it, and I will have that, and it'll be part of our archives that we have put together. And here are many of the videos that have come in. You'll hear from Neil Parekh. You'll hear from my father, T.P. Srinivasan. You'll hear from Chef Vikas Khanna, who just crossed 20 million meals that he has donated in India. And you will learn from him. Mom of all capes, Amber, shared a video, and so many other cool people. And you'll hear from all of them in just a few minutes. That's our show for the hour. But now I'm very excited to bring on screen my two friends who have joined me, who are great friends of this program, and who will talk about what America means to them. First, please say hi to Dr. Chetachi. Hello.
Hello. How are you, Sree?
Very good, and glad to see you. I've got to say, you've got an amazing setup right there.
Okay, so I kind of cheated because I do like 3 shows, live stream shows every week. So all I had to do was turn on what I had.
Well, you make it look good and you make it look easy. First question I always ask, how are you? Where are you?
I am fantastic, considering, and I am in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
And Florida is the epicenter, right? You guys are looking at us and saying, what pathetic people in the Northeast, and now you are in the middle of it all.
Well, there's always been some patheticness, if that's a word here. So, we have no cause to look at other people. But yeah, it's getting very hot here. And so I'm just trying to lay low.
I understand. All right, let's bring in our other guest, Rahadyan. How are you?
I'm very well. Hi. Nice to see you, Sree.
Great to see you, and thank you for being here. You're such a good friend of this show. Tell us how you are, where you are.
Well, right now I'm in Center Reach, Long Island. That's just south of Stony Brook, where you teach, and it's 60 miles east of New York City. As for how I am, well, I'm managing. It's a difficult situation. As you know, my mom died of COVID-19 about 2 months ago, and I'm in the middle of doing all sorts of things as self-care. I have a good support system for which I feel very blessed. And as I've said to you before, your show is a lifeline. It gives me hope for the future when everything else seems so dire from the news and everything. And the uptick in cases in different states is just not, it's worrisome, quite frankly. And how are you, Sree?
Oh, thank you. In 200 guests and 115 shows, the first time after I've asked that question, someone's asking me back. So thank you for asking. We're just very lucky. All of us are, but those of us in the Northeast feel especially sad that these 126,000 deaths, including your mom's, and it has really struck home. Her death really, really affected me because I know that she was a nurse for 50 years. And right. You saw her in a nursing home just a couple of weeks before she passed, and
about 6 weeks. Before.
Yeah, it feels. Thank you. And it feels like, in a way, her death and others, we haven't learned a lesson. You remember the shoe bomber?
Yes.
Yeah.
He did one act, didn't kill anybody, nothing blew up, and all of America changed. Right. Taking off the shoes, and some of it is theater, of course, at the airport. Mm-hmm. But here we have 126,000 people have died. And it feels like to a large section of America, nothing happened. It didn't matter what happened. And that's the saddest part on this 4th of July, to think about that right now.
And I understand about 43% of the deaths in the United States were in nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities. So that in and of itself it's a sad thing, especially if you consider that nursing homes are understaffed and the people there are overworked. And it's kind of at the lower end of the hierarchy in terms of healthcare. So it's just saddening and angering both at the same time.
And you know a lot about caregiving, and you had spent your career at the New York Times, and then you decided to go out and try a different field. And what did you learn about being a caregiver, that you wish everybody understood about the profession?
I think actually in terms of it's never too early to prepare for long-term care of a loved one. I think that certainly my parents were ill prepared financially to do so. They figured that that their children would have the resources to help them. But in fact, it's very difficult, and many people across the United States are not prepared for such issues as dementia, which my mom had, and other long-term chronic illnesses. And there's just so much that people weren't prepared for. A lawyer friend of mine did tell me that my situation was not unique. And it's just, that's a key thing. The Alzheimer's Association, ALZ.org, has seminars periodically on financial preparation for such issues. And I would encourage people, if they are in the sandwich generation, as I am, except for the fact I have no children, the sandwich generation is that generation who has both children to care for and aging parents to care for. So if you're in that generation, to seek these out. They're usually free. They don't take up a lot of time out of your day, but it helps to be prepared. Better to be prepared than not, honestly.
You're absolutely right. Chetachi, do you think about these issues?
I do. Maybe not to the same extent that other people do. My mother actually, she's in New York State, and because I grew up in New York State, and she actually has a home health care agency. So she's an essential worker, and well, her staff, they're all essential workers. So you start to think about these things because it hits closer to home. Nobody ever thought that this would happen here. For some reason, we tend to think we're immune from everything. And a lot of it seems to be that we're shielded from a lot of things as well, but there was no shielding us from this time. And so I do think about these things because it's hitting closer to home this time. And it's like, well, am I really prepared? Is anybody really prepared? So absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's go on our global tour. People are watching from all over the world. Jonathan Borstein watching for 115 straight episodes from Union Square. Hi, Jonathan. He was a guest on our 100th episode. And we thought, okay, then he'll stop watching, but he's still watching 15 episodes later. Thanks for being here, Jonathan, as always. Dory's watching. Hi, Dory. And she's got a little emoji also. And look how happy her photo is, right? Like that's a decision people make. Like you can be, happy even in difficult times. Ashok is watching from India. Have either of you been to India?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. My father's watching, and he says, "Happy birthday, America!" And Dad, I'm going to post I'm going to play your video in just a couple of minutes. Anand Babu says, "For me, America is still a great country. I don't believe in those who say, let's make America great again." So he's saying that he feels America was already great. And I took great exception to the slogan, "Make America Great Again," because it implied that it was great at especially the times that the president or the candidate Trump was talking about, right? He was talking about the 50s. He would love it if we went back to the 50s and the early 60s when we didn't have civil rights, when there was so many problems in this country. So what are you talking about when you say make America great again? And that's something that a lot of us had problems with. Steve is watching from Philadelphia. Steve is one of our ace producers on my Digimentors team. We do social, digital, and virtual events, and he produces with our other team members the New York Times read along. And don't forget, 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. Chetachi was a guest a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
It's great to have you. My mom's watching. Hi, Amma and Kerala. Love you. Thank you so much to you and Acha for watching every single time. And Chetachi says hello. She's right there. And she's also on Twitter, so she's posting away. We love everybody who's doing that. We appreciate it. Continue to do it. Let's see here. America doesn't deserve to be a global leader. They had a power monopoly for too long. What do you think, Chetachi? Let's start with you.
I have to agree. They have not shown global leadership, and I'm not saying that they've never shown global leadership. I think, to me, it's like somebody who just gets a position simply because of who they were or who they know, as opposed to actually deserving to have that position. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that they never have shown leadership, but that I agree. They don't deserve it now. You've not shown, you can't even keep things together within your own country and unify people. How can you be a global leader? Somebody who, or a group of somebodies, I'm not going to blame one somebody, but a group of somebodies who don't see the value in a global economy, who don't see the value in global cooperation, you have no business leading anything. Focus on trying to get things together, and that it simply can't happen now as things are. This is my opinion.
And I nodding away because I agree. Rajan, over to you.
Well, I think that if you want to be a leader instead of just a manager, you have to set an example. And in terms of especially the current administration, I don't think that America has been setting a good example. It's become increasingly isolationist, or going in that direction, certainly. And by withdrawing from the WHO and from other organizations and past agreements, we're trying to tell the world that, yes, we can do it all by ourselves. But the truth of the matter is we are just one nation among hundreds of nations in a very complicated world tied together by technology and information, especially, and finances. And now I don't know if collectivism is the way to go, but certainly what we are doing is not the correct direction.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's keep going with the comments. There's so many comments coming in. And let's see. Zarina says, watching from Karachi, Pakistan. Hello. Thank you for watching from there. And by the way, Kerala, Ashok is inviting both of you to Kerala. So you have now a place to go. As soon as the lockdown's over and it's safe to get to India, you can get there.
Fantastic.
And we are just seeing all these great comments coming in. Ashok says, New Yorker says in an article, no one will die because of Trump's dishonest lobster tweet, but the stuff he makes up about coronavirus is killing people. This is my serious thoughts on America's Independence Day. I missed the lobster tweet, so I don't know. Did he claim to have caught lobster or something? Who knows? Manuel's watching from Spain. Have either of you been?
Yes, I went to Spain in 1982 as part of a school trip in Madrid and Barcelona.
Nice. I've not been. My daughter has been to Spain, but I'm not. What about you, Tachi?
No, I've only been to the UK and Switzerland. So when lockdown finishes, I have to make my tour of the world.
And clearly there are people who will give you a couch to crash on for sure. And my mom says, happy birthday to America. Stefan says, you are looking fabber. And hi, Rahadyan, always thinking of you and sending you big hugs. And people are sending you their condolences, Rahadyan. It's very nice to see.
I really appreciate it. It means a great deal. Thank you.
Yeah. And Doug Levy says, I'm so sorry for your loss, Rahadyan, and so many others, right? Think about Rahadyan, his mom was one wonderful lady, but 126,000 people killed in this country.
And I'm learning of friends whose relatives and parents or in-laws have also died of COVID-19 in similar situations, usually in skilled nursing facilities or in nursing homes, and it's horrible.
And very, very sad to imagine. By the way, Doug Levy, who's DougLevy.com at SFDoug on Twitter, runs a very useful newsletter where every day he sends out 3 headlines that are about medical aspects of coronavirus that everybody should subscribe to. So just go to DougLevy.com or tweet him at SFDoug, or he'll tell us how to find information about that. And hello from North Carolina. Have either of you been?
Yes.
I went to a wedding there in 2000. Wow.
Okay. Yes, 20 years goes like that, doesn't it? Neil says, I used to work for a union representing home care and nursing home workers, SEIU. These workers are underpaid, underappreciated, and have few benefits. Family caregivers have it particularly tough. So thank you, Neil, for sharing that. And Neil is executive producer of the New York Times Read Along, and all of you should join us tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Sunday. We'll go really late here, so we can just roll into that show, right?
We might as well.
Yeah, might as well. What are we doing here? And Ashok says, Rajan, so sorry to hear about your loss. I have too lost my wife on 15th February due to acute kidney problems. So sorry, Ashok.
Sorry to hear that, Ashok.
Yeah. And Ashok has been with us every day. Sorry, I was going to say Ashok has been with us every day. And Ashok, I hope this show and this family from around the world gives you some support as you go through your mourning, which of course you must. And that's the saddest part, isn't it, Rajan, that you weren't able to mourn your mom the way you would have, to hold her hand as she passed, all because of the virus.
Yeah, the lockdown began, the last time I saw her was on March 10th. The lockdown of her facility began on March 13th. She presented with symptoms on Friday, April 24th, and then died the following Monday morning. Wow. So even if I had somehow managed to convince the facility administrators that I could go in with PPEs on and hold my mom's hand for the last time or just give her a hug, my mother would actually, as a nurse, she would have been furious with me because she had always admonished me every time I had visited her to, please take care of yourself. But I regret not even having tried to do that in any kind of an intense way. But
please don't don't beat yourself about it, because they wouldn't have let you, and you may have gotten sick in the process from somebody else. So
that's true.
You have, we're glad you're with us, and
Absolutely.
We think of your mom, and may her memory be a blessing as you think about her, and we all think about her. So many comments coming in, and Renee says, I'm watching from Long Island. Renee is a great friend of the show, and thank you, Renee, for all your support, and thank you for watching. Doug is just giving you the address for the newsletter. So it's DougLevy.substack.com, streenet.substack.com. And by the way, folks, if you aren't on my newsletter, which you can get, we're writing it for tomorrow morning on Sundays, we release it. It's streenet.substack.com. So Sreenet everywhere, including on Substack. Jeanette is watching, and Brian says, so sorry for your loss. Brian says, happy 4th of July, happy birthday, America, and have an amazing show. Thank you so much. Watching from the Philippines. Well,
yay! That's a distant cousin of mine, actually.
Oh, wow. Very
The Manihars are my mother's side of the family. So Mafe is somebody that I correspond with, but mostly via Facebook. But someday, inshallah, I will actually go to the Philippines again. I have not been since 1971, and so I'm way overdue to be there.
Wow.
Yes, you are. Just to make it clear, your mom's side of the family is from the Philippines and your father's side from Indonesia.
That's correct.
And we're just so glad this global community is here, and we're all with you. Rick says, America is still a land of remarkable opportunities, despite increasing inequities and inequalities. COVID is a wake-up call to redress these injustices. We need to elect servant leaders to represent us, we the people, and unrig the system. And he's been writing about that on LinkedIn. So everyone find Rick Botello and read his great posts on this topic. We don't have servant leaders. We have leaders who expect us to be servants. We have leaders who have servants all around them, including very powerful people themselves who have turned out to be servants of the leaders that we certainly did not want as our leaders. So many great comments coming in. And Jeanette is watching from the Seattle area. And Stefan says, everyone should listen to Chetachi's Mediascope, one of my favorite live streaming shows. So much great insight all the time. Wow, nice. How do we find Mediascope?
So it's every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Periscope, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and WJMSradio.com. So at the end, I could get at Tachiata if you watch on Periscope or Twitter. So same as my handle here. So I talk all about media, tech, and pop culture news with a lot of fun and foolishness thrown in.
I like that. That's a great slogan, fun and foolishness, but serious stuff as well. I like that very much. Much love and much respect and many blessings. And Jyoti says, thank you for sharing that story, as mine and many other moms are breathing their last without their adult kids. So sad, Jyoti. My condolences to you as well. And so much going on here, so much to say. Let's take a look at, and many people have sent in videos and they're continuing to do so. Before we see the videos, I wanted to start by reading this tweet out from Colin Kaepernick, who you folks know is the American football player who brought so much attention over the last few years to inequities in this country, and especially police brutality. And his quote says, "Black people have been dehumanized, brutalized, and criminalized and terrorized by America for centuries and are expected to join in your commemoration of independence while you enslaved our ancestors. We reject your celebration of white supremacy and look forward to liberation for all." Tachi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so about the whole July 4th thing, I've always been the person that says independence for who? It certainly wasn't independence for people of African descent, and certainly not for people of color. I guess we're now called BIPOC. I 100% agree. I don't understand how people want us to set things aside when there's never been any formal apologies, no real acknowledgement until now that there is a serious problem. But you want us to celebrate, and we're still in the midst of fighting for rights and life. It's impossible. So I have never been one that, of course, you do things, you may celebrate surfacely, you go watch fireworks, that type of thing. But as far as actually feeling it as a celebration of independence, it wasn't independence for us. And there's a speech that Frederick Douglass did that said, "What to the slave is the 4th of July." Essentially, we still are in a state of slavery or state of servitude. So to expect those that are still enslaved to celebrate when they're not truly free is ludicrous. And the thing that annoys me is how I've been watching social media all day. When people post this, all sorts of vitriol underneath. Oh, well, why are you still griping? And that's the thing that annoys me. Unless you're in the situation, clearly you have no, or you have empathy, you can't fully understand what it means to celebrate something that doesn't include you. So I 100% agree. Why would you celebrate except on the surface?
Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate you being on the show today, because you knew we weren't just celebrating, we were talking and discussing, and your presence here shows that we are listening to you and to so many other voices at this time, which is what we really need.
And in fact, really quickly, when you told me the subject, I was like, "Hey, does he really want me to be on the show?" Because I know how I feel about it. And while it's not a case of everything necessarily being bad, there are a lot of things that are bad, particularly now. It's not a secret that I'm Black. And so to sit here in false pretense and celebrate something that really was never intended to include me, it would not have been truthful to who I am. Hopefully, one day it truly will include everybody. But as it is now, it's clear it was not written for us. And the actions of this country, not everyone, but this country in terms of the institutionalized racism, etc., shows that it wasn't written for us. So hopefully, we're working towards that. I have to say I need to be convinced, but I hope we're working towards that.
Rahadyan, what do you say?
Well, I agree. The challenge is that people of Asian descent overlap with those of African Americans, Black people in general. I would have, I actually until I was a teenager, I would have called myself an honorary white person, because my privilege was such that it was what I guess I would call white adjacent now, but it wasn't perfect acceptance, perfect tolerance. You kind of learn that in a white majority high school once you start dating, and the parents look askance at who their children are socializing with. And even, going forward through my various work lives, there were opportunities given to people of privilege automatically that I had to fight for, or I don't know who the originator of this quote is, but I first heard it on Scandal. And that is the quote, "We have to work twice as hard to get half as much." And I think that is true of all people of color, or anybody who's marginalized in places where they are not part of the dominant culture.
Correct.
America can do better. It could probably always have done better, but as a general national culture, and looking at government policies over the years, it hasn't done as well as it could. It's especially true in the treatment of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. And what a lot of people don't realize when they say to someone they see as an immigrant, "Go back to your own country," the thing is that a lot of ethnic groups from abroad were here before the United States was the United States. I understand that Filipinos were in Louisiana as early as the 17th, maybe the late 16th century. And what I learned today, by the way, is that Haitians fought in the American Revolution. They were part of a troop of free Haitian people, free Haitian men, fought alongside the American colonist troops. And although Haiti, I understand, did not have its own independence from France until 1801.
Correct.
People don't know that. I didn't know that, and I'm 57 years old, and I kind of pride myself on knowing things like that, and I didn't know that. We need to improve the education of how non-white, non-European descent people have contributed to making America the land that it is now. Because American history, as it has been taught, focuses on the good parts, the shiny parts. But
Well, and we know why that is.
Founded in a very shiny way, I guess the term is.
Yeah, no, well, we know why that is, right? People don't like to feel bad about themselves. Yeah, and people don't like to feel bad about themselves. And if you teach the whole truth, you're going to see the role that non-melanated people had in making the lives of melanated people truly miserable in this country. And it makes people feel bad. Of course, you don't want to read that. And so you make history like a storybook, and we all live happily ever after in a melting pot or salad, which is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. So one thing that I am glad about, and you brought up a lot of great stuff. One thing that I'm glad about is that it's not just the government who is responsible, city, state, national government that is responsible for all of this. For solving all of this. This is also we as citizens, corporate responsibility, etc. So I'm glad to see this corporate responsibility in the form of commercials, in the form of donations of money to start to alleviate and talk about these things, forming of pipelines. But I've said this all week. That's nice, but I am not clapping for you for doing what you should have damn well done in the first place. You should have been done this. So the fact that now you didn't realize it was a problem before, and that speaks to a real problem with us. If you were so blind or so complicit to the oppression of other people, there's a real problem. So I'm glad that things are starting to break. But again, this is why I think so many of us are like, okay, we'll believe it when we see it, because we've heard this story before. This is not new. This has been happening.
And
sorry.
Please go ahead, Rajan.
I hope that this is something that won't be set aside after the pandemic, after if, and that's a big if, we have a new president come January. I hope that the momentum of this current movement continues and it gets bigger. And because the problem is systemic, it can't be band-aided over. Correct. With good intentions and corporate initiatives and public relations. It has to be, it's the core that has to be addressed, not just the surfaces.
By the way, you two should have a talk show together. You were away and just let you guys write it out. It was beautiful. Thank you. You mentioned the speech by Frederick Douglass. So we have a clip here that Neil sent me a link to. So let's play that and listen for, we won't be able to play the whole thing, but let's listen to a little bit. Thank you very much. Let me turn up that volume and let's hit play.
Do I look there or there? Okay. My name is Alexa Ann Watson, and I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of
Frederick Douglass is my great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter
of Frederick Douglass.
I am the great-great-great-grandchild. I've been counting on my fingers since I was like 5.
This is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom.
Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. The simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment.
With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression. They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence?
Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary.
Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us.
Right. I could listen to the whole thing right now, but we have to move on. People can watch that. We have the link in the videos that in the Facebook group. People can find it there. Thank you for mentioning it, Chetachi, and thank you to Neil for sharing it. So many comments coming in. Roberta is watching from Richmond, Virginia. Thank you for watching. And Jeanette says, such a dramatic year in the US, hoping for far more progress in civil rights. Stefan says, all the dollars spent on July 4th fireworks this year, including Macy's, should have gone to important and essential causes, considering that we're dealing with during these difficult times and what we've been living through. And Neil says, Colin Kaepernick's tweet is on point. I'm conflicted about where America is today. And Mark is watching from Durham, North Carolina. And what I'm going to do is bring on his comments so that you can watch. So everyone, we are using this tool called Flipgrid, by the way, a great way to crowdsource videos. And everybody just goes on here and hits the plus button, and they can play a video, and then we can watch it. And this is something that's used in schools. And so here's Mark with the video he submitted. He was the first one again to do it, and we're going to play it right now. So let me just make sure everybody is able to see. Sorry, 1 second. Let me pull that up. And here's the video. And this is Mark as he's also on screen right now. And here's his video.
4th of July, a lot of different things to me. Definitely 4th of July is about the activism has always been part of America's roots, because America definitely has some deep activism roots in terms of both the activism that created the country, but also activism that has been very much a part of what goes on in America's history. As a matter of fact, usually on the 4th of July, I would be at the Festival of the Eno. That actually was started by a group of folks that were very much involved in the environmental movement, and they wanted to celebrate some of the things that go on in Mother Nature and things of that nature. But they were definitely activists, and they do use this activity to commemorate some of their activities, but also to commemorate the 4th of July. So that's usually what I would be doing on the 4th of July. But of course, with COVID, we actually did a virtual event, and that was done on yesterday on the 3rd. I do know that I'm going to try to hear some fireworks, though, because I do love those fireworks. So I'll be trying to check those.
And thank you to Mark.
My name is Amit Prabhu. I'm AMITHPR on Twitter. I'm sharing this message from Gurgaon in India, a suburb close to New Delhi. What does America mean to me? Many things. Until 10 years ago, I'd never been to the United States. Then my employer sent me for a meeting to New York City, and I spent 1 week, 3 days in New York and 4 days in Chicago. I fell in love with that country. I got lucky. A year later, I got employed by the world's largest public relations firm, Edelman, in their Chicago office. Those 2 years with Edelman were the best years of my adult life. Two things that always remain with me are respect for hard work that America gives its citizens and people who work there, and the freedom to enjoy things in a very different way that many other countries don't offer their people. That will always remain with me, and to me, America means respect for hard work and an enjoyment of freedom. Happy 4th of July.
So we'll just pause there. So interesting, right? That Amit, by the way, thank you for contributing. Amit runs his own public relations business in India, and the largest public relations conference in the world is run by him. It's called Praxis, in Asia. So I've been out there, and you could hear people who don't live in this country. How many countries do people say that about? But people are also clear-eyed about its problems, and that's important. Exactly. And a big thank you to Mark, who's watching. Mark has been a guest on the show, and he's taught me how to be an ally in the struggle for civil rights. And he's always been very clear about what the opportunities are, but also what the problems are of this country. Let's get in a couple of more videos. And folks, of course, please feel free to jump in and respond as we watch these as well.
My name is
sorry, let me just make
Amit
sure
Prabhu.
I get.
I'm AMITHPR on Twitter.
Here is the next one.
Hi, Sree, it's Jungwa, and thank you so much for this positive, amazing community that you've helped build and the team. I'm so impressed and grateful. Independence Day for me means freedom of thought, protection of democracy, and justice for all. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Oops, 1 second. Sorry, I didn't hit, you were not watching the video, so let's have her watch.
Hi, Sree, it's Jungwa, and thank you so much for this positive, amazing community that you've helped build and the team. I'm so impressed and grateful. Independence Day for me means freedom of thought, protection of democracy, and justice for all. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you. Let's go to the next video.
Sree, thank you for asking this question and making us think about what America means to us this 4th of July weekend in 2020, the summer of the pandemic, of coronavirus, of George Floyd, the 4th of July after the 1619 Project, where we have are confronting the legacy of slavery, a reckoning of our past. I don't know what America means to me. I have always been very proud to be an American, except for when I was living overseas, for example, in Egypt during the Gulf War, during the Iraq War, rather, and Abu Ghraib came out. I'm conflicted. I've been very proud at times, but really, for now, I think it's really just time to take a knee and to pause and think and reflect.
Well, what do you think, Chetachi?
On point. There's nothing more that I can add to that, and I kind of agree. I know probably for a lot of us here, we may be first generation or second generation American. My parents emigrated here from Nigeria, and so there's this duality that you live with of being both American or wherever you're from. Like, so in my case, American and Nigerian. And, there was always a clarity of, okay, well, definitely I'm both, but as America begins to show you more and more that you're not American, or that you don't belong, or that if you're going to be here, you're relegated to a certain status in society, it makes you think you don't know how you feel about America. It's especially now, you don't know. So I 100% agree. It's a conflicting state to be in.
Thank you, Rajan.
I agree. It's definitely a conflicting state to be in. I was fortunate in that the only anti-Asian sentiment sent at me during this time in which the Chinese were blamed for creating the coronavirus was the day before Easter, when I was going shopping, and a woman in a mask, a white woman about my age, leaped away from me and said, "Oh my God, for all I know, it's going to be you who's going to give me this virus. And you're not even a real American." And I'm thinking to myself, I was born and bred here. I'm as real American as you are. So I took issue with that, and I wasn't that taken aback by it because I expected it to happen sooner or later, but it was upsetting, even if it was an isolated incident in my experience.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry.
Please.
It's sad. I think that it's really sad, the fact that you expect for this to happen sooner or later, just like I expect it. Oh, well, that's just going to happen. It's really sad. And if you are not a person of color, you should really be ashamed and upset that there are people out there that are putting this on you, that this now becomes you. I would be hella mad and hella upset if now, these uninformed, uneducated, stupid people, and yes, I'm calling them stupid and not their actions, because you're old enough to know better. So these stupid people, I'm not giving people passes anymore, especially not in 2020. It's sad that they come now to represent you. And I don't know how many people know that, whereas before, the actions of one white person did not affect the view, how all white people are viewed. But I'm seeing different circles now. It's starting to happen. Yeah. So you have to now protect. If this is not you, you need to stand up and fight and say, "Oh no, this is not us," because now it's becoming a blanket metaphor for all white people, which is not the case, but it's what's happening.
And therefore, people must stand up and declare when they see these actions. And if you stand by and watch, if you don't speak up, you are in the wrong. And by the way, what Rahadyan experienced, thousands of people have experienced around the country, because I'm Asian American, but because I'm not East Asian American, I have not felt it during this period. We've felt it during other crises. But right now, the president calling it Kung Flu, calling it Wuhan virus, that's a direct line from that to that lady saying things to him and other people saying things to thousands of other people. That racism and stupidity, as you said, all combined together, and they learn from the very top of this country, and that's a shame. Let's watch another video. It's so great to be able to hear these voices from so many different folks.
Today, even though America looks despondent, to me, it's a country of personal freedom, of democracy, of innovation, of providing leadership to the world. Today's problems are an aberration because American society is capable of overcoming such problems and come back to lead the world again. Every death has a resurrection. Every civilization goes through different phases. But the strength of America is the strength of its people and the spirit of democracy. They will definitely prevail.
That's my dad watching from India. Thank you, Acha, and thank you for sharing that with us. Let's watch one more video. The next video is from Chef Vikas Khanna, who some of you remember. He was a guest on our show a few weeks ago. He was he's based in New York. He's a Michelin star chef who here he is. I'm just going to tell you something more about him. He is sending food to India and organizing food drives in India. When he joined us, he had done 2 million meals, and today he's crossed 20 million meals that he's doing. Remember, he was a guest on our show a few weeks ago. He was and he had he's given out 20 million meals and 2.5 million sanitary pads, which are hard to get for some folks in India. So let's hear his message of what America means to him.
America, the land of the free. For centuries, immigrants like myself have been coming to this promised land to seek their freedom, without realizing that we all have to fight for that freedom. It could be an expression of your art, your creativity, imagination, intelligence, ideas, craftsmanship. This is the country which gives you a global platform to perform. But you've got to hustle every single day. This is what America has taught me over the last 20 years, to stand up for what is right, to stand up in what you believe in. Long live the spirit of freedom.
Wow. What do you think, Chetachi?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, the thing is that does not mean that there is no promise. I think that's one thing that people have always said about this country, that there's opportunity, there's promise, and I would say more, there's potential. There's the potential to be better. It's just when people are not pushed to be better, they don't. And so I think everything that's happening now, from COVID-19 and the lack of response to what's happening now and socially and social injusticely, which is not a word, I made that up, but which is what's happening now. I think that the only place to go is up, because I think we've actually hit rock bottom. There's only one area to go. So I think because of that, there's the potential to be better, and better than before. We hope better than before.
Thank you, Rahadyan.
I was thinking as your father was speaking that I hope he's right, that this is what we're going through now is an aberration. Taking the long view, I mentioned on one of your shows that the Professor Tyler Anbinder of George Washington University wrote a book a few years ago, about 10 years ago, called 5 Points, and it focuses on a neighborhood, which is now part of Chinatown in Manhattan, where there was a cycle of nativists versus newcomers. It started with the English people who had been here since before the Revolution versus the Irish, then the Irish versus the Italians versus the Chinese, and so on until the early part of the 20th century. And looking at it from the distance, of decades, of centuries, it's fine. It's okay, but being in the middle of it, where people who have been there all of their lives or for generations are still treated as outsiders, it's painful. It's very painful. Yes, and so I think of it, and what the chef said, yes, it's aspirational. We can do better. We must do better. There is a science fiction story by Arthur C. Clarke in which the closing line is, "We must love each other or we will die." And that has always, resonated with me strongly, that love in that it cannot be a casual "I love you" type of a word. It has to be an active verb. It has to be, your actions have to show love, not just for your family, your friends, or even your tribe, as it were, but for all of humanity. We have to think of species love, civilization love. We have to operate on that level, not just what can I have for myself in mind today? What can I gain by screwing over somebody else who is not like me? We have to think of a long view. Otherwise, we will certainly die as a civilization. And that would be really, really sad.
Thank you. Thank you. We have lots of comments coming in. Rick says, unite the divide with truth, justice, equality, and freedom. And so many other comments coming. Jeanette says, appreciate the descendants of Frederick Douglass reciting his speech. Also ran across an article in The Atlantic that she's linked to. And Vandana says, CLR James's The Black Jacobins is an incredible history of the Haitian Revolution. And that was something that Rahadyan had brought up earlier. And Vandana is one of our two producers who makes this show possible every single day. They've worked for 115 days without a break, and I'm so grateful to them. At Vandana_Menon and Rose Horowitz 31. And by the way, this is a moment for me to take a quick opportunity to tell you all about a show that Rose and Vandana and I are producing. It runs every Sunday after the New York Times read along, and it's a new show in the 4th episode, and we want to tell you about it, and we have a video ad for it. So here you go as you learn about this particular show that airs on Facebook and social, on all the socials, on Sundays at 11.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar. I'm an ear, nose, and throat surgeon in New York City and New Jersey.
And I'm Dr. Marina Kurian. I'm a general surgeon in New York City area.
We'd like to introduce you to our new show, She's on Call. We air live on social media platforms from 11 a.m. to noon every Sunday Eastern Time. We discuss the medical topics of the week.
We have two great guests, experts in their field, that help us analyze and look at some of the topical issues of healthcare. And we are on 11 to 12, so please join us.
We'd love to answer your questions, so please share and watch and send us your questions and comments.
See you Sundays at 11.
And we are now back. We're talking about what America means to me with Chetachi Egwu, PhD. She's Tachiada on Twitter, and she's a filmmaker and professor. And we're with Rahadyan Sastrowardoyo, who's at RT Sastrowardoyo on Twitter. He's a caregiving expert and a former New York Times journalist. He was there for 22 years. Thank you to both of you for being here. I know we're going longer than expected, but as you can see, lots of people want to participate and share their comments. We're very grateful. We just heard from Chef Vikas Khanna, the Vikas Khanna on Twitter. He's got 2.3 million followers, and every day he just gets up and does things to help people. He's an incredible man. Let's go to another comment.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's Amber, a.k.a. Mama of All Cakes, and her kiddos. And we're going to talk about what does America mean to us. America is an ongoing experiment. That's what America means to me, right? And America meaning the United States of America. It is a wonderful opportunity to take a diversity and tapestry of interests and people and religions and cultures and races and ideologies and see how we can pull them together into just a beautiful way of expressing what is possible when humanity comes together. So that's what America means to me. Hopefully we all take that opportunity to bridge divides, to look at the goodness in our common man, and try and find a great way forward. So that's what the United States of America means to me.
Chetachi, over to you to get your thoughts. I just want to show you the beginning of the video because that's her family. And the four of them were on my show a few weeks ago on a Saturday night. It was one of the highlights of this. They were fabulous, all three of them, very young women, young girls and women, and her. And then her show is called K-12 Better, and she's on Twitter at Mom of All Capes. Everyone should follow her at Mom of All Capes. Chetachi, over to you.
So there's an awful lot of idealism when we look at this concept of America in terms of what it can be and what it should be, instead of what it is. And we all want it to be this idea that we have that's been ingrained in us. And the reality is it's not, and that's, because of us. So it's sad to say, it's like I almost have no hope. And that's a sad thing to say. And I'm usually very hopeful, but I almost have no hope, except for the fact that there are children. And you see things like the youth in terms of, the mobilizing on TikTok and mobilizing in different ways. It's the youth. I mean, it's the same thing with the civil rights movement. People point to leaders like Martin Luther King, etc., as the ones who, but it was really the crux of the movement were high school and college students. And so I have, when I start to be like, okay, this is hopeless, I remember that there are people that are under us that are starting to take the reins and are tired too and are doing something. So that's my take on that. And it was apropos because her children were in that scene with her.
Yes, they certainly were. And everyone, please take a look. And you can see all of these videos. If you don't want to watch my entire hour plus, you can just go to flipgrid.com/Sree July 4, SREE July 4, to watch all of these videos.
Hi, Sree. Thanks for the opportunity. I remember getting really inspired by Lincoln's words in the Gettysburg Address when I was a sixth grader, and hearing the words, "This new nation created in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal." It was so inspiring. And for me, America's always been this beacon of hope and land of opportunity where hard work is rewarded. It's a big, large melting pot where you get to meet people from all over the world and have this free exchange of ideas, where you have opportunity to learn from each other, this land of innovation. And despite all the tragic events of this year, I still believe in the ideals that Lincoln talked about. And I hope that we can come together as a community, learn from each other and learn to help each other, and learn and sort of grow to Lincoln's ideals and words of hope and dreams for the country. Happy birthday, America. That's what America means to me.
That's Rupa's sister, my wife's sister. She's a physician in Maryland, and very grateful to her for taking the time to do that. Rahadyan, your thoughts?
That's one of my favorite speeches ever. It's just, I'm trying to imagine how revolutionary it was at the time that he gave that speech in 1863, before we had widespread media. I mean, the fastest that things could get around the then United States was via telegraph. Newspapers might take days between the initial event and its promulgation to the people. And I'm thinking just how groundbreaking it must have been and how eye-opening it must have been to many people. The people that were there, some people who probably didn't get it, who didn't appreciate it, probably. And that is probably the case now with the enormous amount of news services and fake information, disinformation being promulgated. And I wish we had better filters now to help us navigate that. But back then, the Gettysburg Address was key. And I'm glad it was there.
And there were only 271 words in the Gettysburg Address. It's about 10 sentences long. And I was in the 5th grade when our teacher, Mrs. Donovan, at PS6 in New York, made us memorize it. And that really appealed to my dad, who always was telling us we have to learn. This is something that they do in Commonwealth countries, that learn how to give speeches is a thing that they do. And so my dad, when I was young, used to make us recite Mark Antony's speech from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And so he was very much into my learning the Gettysburg Address, and I'll never forget learning that in Mrs. Donovan's class and being able to talk about it and recite it. It seemed forever, but it was only 10 sentences. It took me, must have been a month to learn how to say that. Let's look at some of the other comments coming in. So many coming in text also. Mark is saying, even the storybooks are rubbish. Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and the lid goes on are full of all kinds of sexism and racism. I did a show with Kimberly Crenshaw, the great professor who coined the term intersectionality, and her Twitter handle is Sandy Locks instead of Goldilocks. and we were talking about how Goldilocks must have been white, not only because of her golden hair, but only a white person would walk bravely into a stranger's house and eat their food and sleep in their bed.
That's the ultimate entitlement.
Yeah, exactly. Not worried about being shot in any way. Just like, oh, let me just go and eat all their food and sleep. So please check out @Sandy Locke. She is amazing, and she has had a permanent impact on this show. She said, I asked her what we can do, and she said, say their names. And I hope both of you will be able to stay with me when we say their names later tonight. Let's go to some more comments. Mark says, a friend of mine's father, Ariel Dorfman, wrote a book about how deep capitalism is in old Disney TV shows and movies. And Jeanette says, so true at Chetachi, about corporate responsibility and the sincere expression of values rather than just reactionary PR approaches. And Roberta says, I'm so glad you're showing that video that we showed of Frederick Douglass's great. I loved how the greats were lining up. And that was, and Rose says, wonderful video. Great to hear this discussion. And she's at Rose Horowitz 31. Everyone, please follow her. She does Women to Follow, #Women to Follow. And please nominate a great woman to follow. And if Tachi isn't there, I nominate her for that. She should absolutely be there. Mark says, one of the things that I do not hear anyone speak about is that we need to begin creating critical thinking, teaching critical thinking to children in schools and keep it as an educational necessity throughout, examining the power of assumptions, bias, which unexamined enables the perpetuation of racism. Thank you, Mark. Very good point. I think we saw the applause here. Rusudan says, congratulations, happy Independence Day. And Rose is tagging Renee Edelman because you heard Amit, who said the best years of his life were when he worked for Edelman in America, and she's a senior executive at Edelman, the company her dad, Daniel Edelman, started. So it's a small world. Jeanette says, what a powerful family legacy. Chilling too. Makes you think more deeply about patriotism and how non-inclusive it has been and how this needs to change. You can care about this country and still want to have accurate depictions of history, even and especially when painful. Think about Frederick Douglass. I didn't know his great-great-grandchildren. That's not surprising, but I've been, I'm almost 50 years old. There's certainly 2 or 3 generations of the Douglass family who should be celebrities in America, right? But they're not because of the racism, right? Here's somebody who has a direct line to one of the great leaders in America, and that's where we are. Rick is talking about Flipgrid and says cool crowdsourcing app. And if anyone has other suggestions for video crowdsourcing, I'd like to hear it. And Jeanette says, thanks to all who shared their videos on what America means to me. Wow. And Rusudan says, for my country, Georgia, U.S. is a strategic partner and land of democratic values and freedom. And that's certainly what America used to stand for so many years. We were the leader. We would be the ones scolding countries for saying bad things about their press or muzzling their press. And now we have a president who's the muzzler in chief, who's the critic in chief. He calls America and he calls the press the enemies of the people. People who say that are the enemies of the people. Sajid says, America today is emotionally challenged to the core. Rahadyan, do you agree?
Yes, I do. I think that I believe it was Tanzina Vega, former Times CNN person who is now the host of The Takeaway on NPR. And she referred to the United States having an empathy gap. And we certainly have that. We certainly have people who have a shocking inability to put themselves in the shoes and the viewpoints of people who aren't like them, whether the divide is by ethnicity, religion, what have you, people either do not want to see it or have an inability to see it. So it's one of the things that needs to be solved on a systemic level, and I don't know how to do that.
They don't have to see it. I mean, that's the thing. Unless it is pertinent to you, there's no incentive for people to see. It doesn't pay anything.
Right.
There's no incentive. You don't get fined or put in jail if you don't. It's purely for those who are enlightened and realize that being part of America is being part of the whole, and that's everyone. So if you don't value that or you don't see that, you don't care. There's no reason to empathize.
Okay, Mark says, I'm so motivated by the youth of America, both historically and even today. And so many Black leaders have said how proud they are of the young people on the streets making such a difference and causing so much attention to be raised to these issues. We have just a few more videos. Here's Paula Kiger from Tallahassee, Florida. Have either of you been to Tallahassee?
No, funny. I mean, I have not been beyond Tampa.
I've not been to Tallahassee.
Okay. Well, Paula is one of the producers of the New York Times Read Along, and a reminder that one of the most interesting pages in America is the New York Times opinion pages, and we have a guest tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Trish Hall will be with us. She's the former editor of the New York Times op-ed page, and she will be with us at 8:30 a.m. as we talk about the New York Times op-ed page and her book, Writing to Persuade. And I think we all need to learn how to persuade when we write. So now let's look at Paula's video.
Hi, I'm Paula Kiger from Tallahassee, Florida. Big green pen. Here's exactly what I thought of when I thought of what America means to me. I thought of a gentleman I met in Guatemala. Our daughter and I were meeting with his family, his extended family, because we were in a sponsorship program and we were starting to sponsor his 4-year-old niece. He asked me, how much does it cost to get to America? I answered his question, but I know enough about the situation to know it's unlikely he'll ever be able to afford that amount of money. But I think about that so often, about that look in his eyes. And I know it's not that he wanted to leave his culture, leave the people who were dearest to him, but he still knows or perceives that this is a place where he would be safe from all the things that threaten his life in Guatemala, and that we had that kind of freedom here. I never take it for granted, and I think of that gentleman often.
Beautiful. Tachi, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at these things in context, it's really interesting because for some people, this represents something completely different than what they have, which for them may be safety, which for them may be opportunity. And there are a lot of people who have that safety and have that opportunity that do take it for granted. So that's one thing. If you have that, remember that there are the people who don't have that and who look at you with not necessarily envy, but with hope. So very well said. She put that very nicely.
Rahadyan?
I was thinking about the fact that each of my parents came here to the United States. My father in 1955 from Indonesia, and my mom from the Philippines in 1960. And the reason that each of them came here was for the opportunity. My mother's father had died when she was about 20, so she changed her major from pre-law to nursing, so she could bring money into the family much sooner. And then she eventually was the first of her siblings to come to the United States, where the opportunities were great, especially in healthcare. And so she could also send money home to the family because the standard of living and the amount of pay that one receives is very different than it was in the Philippines at the time, and still is probably, which is why there are a great many Filipinos and people of Filipino descent in healthcare. And that's true of many other countries. I have met many people of Haitian and other Caribbean descent, people in healthcare in various places in my life. And it is, I hope that it is one of those evergreen career paths, although it will change with the rise of technology. As we have seen during the pandemic, there's an increased use of telemedicine. And hopefully that will expand to other types of things beyond, say, diagnosis. Telesurgery would probably be very problematic if you don't have a robust Wi-Fi connection, but that's a topic for another.
Is that a thing? Telesurgery?
It's in its very early stages, I think. But I think that the problem is the learning curve of it's like being a puppet master, and you don't know how much the delay between the movement of your fingers and the actions of the tools will be. So it's like in the early days of gaming, when you would play a video game and there would be just a slight lag between what you tried to do and what you were supposed to do. For people who use guns, it's like the lag. It's like leading your target, leading a moving target. You have to shoot slightly ahead of them. And I think that I could be wrong, and we can ask she's on call tomorrow if that's still the case. I think the case with telesurgery is kind of in that stage when you have to anticipate more than get instantaneous feedback.
You mentioned video games. Were you a gamer, Rahadyan?
Not a gamer. I did a lot of things as catharsis. There was a game called a PC-based game called Shadow President, in which if I had a really, really bad day, I would mass troops. As the president, I would mass troops on the India-China border. And then my chief of staff would be so mad at me that he would just shoot me in the head. So that's probably not a good game for these days. And then there was the game Afterburner, which was post Top Gun type game.
Yeah, very.
That was definitely a product of its age, of its era. And so, but my joke about my age, and I'm 57, is that when Pong, the first commercial video game, came out, I was in 3rd or 4th grade. And I was also, when I was younger, I wanted to be a comic book artist. So I used to draw superheroes from my classmates at a diamond drawing in order to feed my Pong habit. So there you go. I've had a weird life.
Not weird, but Tachi, how about you? Are you a gamer?
No, I'm really interested in video game culture, and one of the shows that I'm on monthly is called Sci-Fi Saturdays. So it's the adult version of Saturday morning cartoons, and so it's absolutely awesome. So I am a geek and I am a nerd, but they're all comic.
I'm glad we met.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but I'm not as comic book nerdy as they are. They're all super comic book nerds and they're all gamers. So I'm slowly learning more about gaming culture because of them.
And do you think that things have improved since Gamergate to be more friendly to women and women of color, especially?
No.
No?
That's easy.
There's a similar thing in comics called Comicsgate, in which certain people are lamenting the use of people of color or women as traditional superheroes. Marvel and DC have legacy heroes who have the same name as a previous one, but who inherited the powers somehow, or the powers are passed on to them somehow. And they are not necessarily the original white characters that they were back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So the Comicsgate people reject that and call it SJW, social justice warrior infiltration. There are all sorts of horrible appellations they hurl at people who like the change in the comics culture. The thing is, the comics culture, as a social justice warrior, I want to point out in 1938, when Superman debuted, he was against husbands who abused women. In fact, he actually nearly tossed one out a window in an early issue of Superman. So the social justice warrior movement, even though it wasn't called that, has always been there within comic books and within pop culture, whether people choose to acknowledge it or not.
Wow, interesting. I hope
again another topic for another show.
Yeah, you'd be a guest on one of these comic book shows for sure. Let's check out a couple of more videos. Let's go in here, and our next video is here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan Kaplan, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here this weekend. My dear friend Sree wanted us to record a short video speaking about what America means to us. Well, what America means to me is right here in this photo. An incredible group of friends and family to this day that I grew up with. I was blessed as a born and bred New Yorker to be able to go to this international school called the Lycée Français Kennedy right here in New York. And to this day, I will always hold this photo and all of my friends from Africa to Haiti to Afghanistan to London to France to Korea, all in my heart, near and dear, and know that this is what America represents. Always will, in my heart, in my soul. Ça, c'est l'Amérique. J'adore tout le monde. Mes meilleurs vœux et bonne chance. Merci bien.
Oh,
Wow.
That was beautiful.
It was.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And it was amusing to see the auto captions that were going wrong. They were not ready for French at the moment, so the machines are not that smart as they think they are. But it's so nice. And Stefan, thank you for holding up that photo. I want to get now a copy of that and look at young Stefan in that. Yeah, Stefan's mom, by the way, was one of the first women police officers on the beat in New York City to carry a gun, and she has some incredible stories. And one of the things that Stefan told us was that his father, who's passed away, was someone who helped people who had old music systems fix them up.
8-tracks, yeah.
8-tracks and others. So he must have brought joy to so many people. Just a few more videos here. Let's go to the next one. And this, the next one here is from Linda Bernstein, who's also on our team at Digimentors, and as is Stefan. And Stefan, by the way, is a terrific show called Spin It Social Hour. Every Saturday at 10 a.m., check out a conversation about photography with fabulous photographers every single Saturday.
Hi, Sree. Happy 4th of July. And I wanted to say something about what America means to me. What America means to me is that I'm here at all because about 115 years ago, my grandparents came to America to escape persecution. And by a quirk of history, it means that in most places in America, I am perceived as white. And that means I've grown up with privileges that Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, other Americans of color have not been able to have. But this America also means that we are living in a process. And right now the process is change, and change for the better. And what America means is that we should all be part of this change.
Beautiful. Very well said. Tachi, to you?
I'm really struck by the point that she said process. That's exactly what it is. I'm thinking about, what is it in the preamble? We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. So to form a more perfect union indicates that it is not perfect, that it is imperfect, that it is always a work in progress. Sometimes that work in progress boils over and it's a mess. Sometimes we're on the right path. So I love the fact that she said progress or in progress. I 100% agree.
Thank you. Let's just see so many comments coming in here. Has anyone mentioned the famous Kennedy speech, "Ask not what your country can do for you," or the mountaintop speech by Martin Luther King? But of course, we do know those speeches, and thank you, Mark, for mentioning them. If anyone is interested in meeting children's book author who represent Philadelphia, you can find our video here. And so Steve works with the Parks Alliance in Philadelphia, and some great videos and some great authors there. Neil's complimenting Paula's video. And Jeanette says, very grateful for freedoms and want that for all people.
Exactly.
And Steve says, I was a top infinite runner gamer. Wait, I was a top infinite runner gamer. So I guess Infinite Runner was a game. And that game sounds like the game Risk Mark is talking to Rahadyan about what you were talking about. And,
no, Shadow President is more modern, and it's more up close and personal. You actually have animated figures symbolizing yourself as the president and as various cabinet members. So I don't know if it's still available or if you can actually like port it to modern systems, but just Google the word Shadow President and you can find it.
Shadow President, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Jeanette says, beautiful and inspirational, Stefan. What a credible school and community. And Rose said, so wonderful, Stefan. Thank you for this video and your experience growing up. And Nat W. Nixon, who is a terrific author and thinker. She was a guest on our Positivity show and her new book is out. Please look up Natalie Nixon and follow her on Twitter, Nat W. Nixon. Her book is out. When she joined us, the book wasn't out yet, but now it's out. Please do follow her and check out her book. And let's do the last two of our videos. And here we go. And this next one is from my friend Jamie Metzel. And the video is here.
My friend Sree asked me to do a short video about what America means to me, especially on this July 4th weekend. America has always been a work in progress. We were born imperfect. We've always been imperfect. We're still imperfect, and we will be imperfect. But the ideals of America, the ideals that we're striving for, are actually pretty great. And America has done a lot of great things. We've won 2 world wars. We've built a community, a country that has welcomed so many people. And we've done some really terrible things, starting with the horrendous crime against the Native American Indians, slavery. So to love America doesn't mean to accept all of our imperfections. It means to commit to working together to build a more perfect union that's more inclusive, more diverse, and lives up to our ideals. That's America. We should celebrate it as we work to build it.
That was beautiful. He said, let's celebrate it as we work to build it. What do you think, Tachi?
Absolutely. I mean, just piggybacking off of what I was saying before, it is imperfect. And I think imperfection is okay. I think it's okay to be a work in progress. You just have to have the desire to make it complete at some point. You can't be a work in progress all the time. You have to strive to get to completion at some point. So I think we should not be okay with it just being a work in progress, that we should aim for it to be complete. Even if you don't get to completion, there's a different mindset when you're aiming to complete something than when you're just aiming to constantly be in progress. But I agree, he said it well.
And Rajan?
I was thinking about, and I probably don't have this exact, but James Baldwin said something about to love America is to be able to criticize it. And so I think that's important to, realize. And also I'm thinking about the fact that there's a big difference between if you're working on a project, say for school, and you just do enough to hit the rubric of what the professor or instructor requires, or you do it for, your love of whatever it is that you're doing and go beyond the simple bullet points. And I think that's important that we should do that too. I don't think we should just settle for what we have, no matter who we are. We should, the rising tide lifts all boats. Let's go in that direction.
And if I could add to that, exactly. It's the thing of, okay, now that we're looking at this, everybody's trying to diversify. The Academy has sent out 819 invitations to surpass according to them, their 5-year goal for diversity and inclusion. Well, you should aim beyond just that, aim beyond a number, exactly. Aim to actually make this and make people part of the fabric of who you are, because it has been built off of, all of this has been built off of the one ideal, which is usually not people of color, LGBTQ people, et cetera, et cetera. It's been built off of one fabric. So it needs to, as you're sewing that new dress, you need to include the threads of everybody in there. Exactly. So.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. We have one more video that we will play. You also get to see all these great faces of people as they sent in these videos. And this video is coming to London from a non-American.
Hi, my name's Tristan. I am in the UK. And America to me means a land of extremes. Now, I am someone who loves V8s with supercars, and I like American action movies, and some of the extreme elements of American culture have been, I think, very influential worldwide, and rightly so, because they are unique and interesting. But obviously America has the other side of being an extreme nation, which is you have the political extremes, you have racism, you have injustice, and all of these things that freedom brings. And obviously this makes the United States a very strange country to have as the world leader, because on the one hand, it has such a powerful way of presenting itself that really brings hope to the world. But equally, there's an element which also highlights the darkness of humanity as well.
Tachi, over to you.
Very interesting to hear this from someone who is not from the U.S. and not in the U.S. Absolutely. I think this is not a problem unique to America. I will say that because after all, Europe is very responsible for divvying up the world for their own uses. So, you know, let's be clear with that. So it's not a problem that is unique to America. However, it's been exacerbated because of how diverse this country is, right? And often when you have that level of diversity, there is a struggle for resources, the resources that certain people think that they own by, you know, by birthright or whatever. So, you know, a lot of the issue stems from, is an economic one, stems from money, stems from greed and control of resources. So I definitely hear what he's saying, and it's a little bit scary, you know, in terms of the U.S. We talked about this earlier, being a world leader, or at one point was a world leader. But these problems have always been here. Maybe they just weren't exacerbated because you had a government that was able to keep wraps on it better, but these problems have always been here. And then, you know, the second part of that being that this is not something that is unique to the United States. This happens in other countries as well, just maybe not to the extent, because there are a lot of countries that tend to be a little more homogeneous or don't have as much diversity as happens here. And when there's a struggle for resources, sometimes that's what happens. Is it right? No, but that's what's happening.
And here is Tristan. He'll be with us as a guest. He's an expert on the role of social media in campaigns, and he's a founder of the Social Media Research Center of UK, and he's a doctoral researcher at the University of Bath. So he'll be here on Monday at noon. It's an unusual time for us, but we didn't. If you want to get anybody in Europe, you've got to have it at noon instead of at 9 p.m. And so thanks to Tristan for his comment. And by the way, when I asked him to send in a video, he said, "You know what July 4th means to me? The day America made the biggest mistake."
Yeah, it would be very interesting had there been no revolution.
Yeah. I think we would have been a very different place, and we may not. The three of us may not be sitting here, if America had gone the way it was. So now we don't want to give a Brit the last word on America. So I'm going to ask each of you to give us a final thought. And then we're going to read the names and say the names. So Rahadyan, we'll start with you.
Wow. I think that every day I pray, especially because I have a 5-year-old goddaughter who means the world to me. And she is, her ethnicity embodies the future, I think. She is Indonesian, Filipino, Polish, and Scottish. I want the world that she grows up into to be a much better one than the one we have currently. If we are able to get on the other side of this pandemic and the quarantine and the economic crises and all the different crises that are at work right now, I hope that the momentum generated by the events of this year will continue. And they have to, because it means our survival as a nation, as a society of diverse individuals. And my ideal America would be like my idealized New York City. It would be a whole bunch of different ethnic neighborhoods where people can have any kind of food that they want, unless they're allergic, can access any kind of literature, music, culture, what have you. And it's okay. It's not a problem. We should be able to do that and be able to appreciate each other's differences. We shouldn't be colorblind. We should be color aware. And I think that's what I'd like to see America move more towards in future years.
Well said. Thank you very much, Rahadyan. Everybody, please follow him on Twitter. He's Chetachi Sastrowardoyo on Twitter. And by the way, that's an Indonesian name, and Indonesia is one of the world capitals of social media. They love their social media out there. Have you been?
I have been a few times. I've been 1971 when I was 8, and then 1987, and then 2008. So I'm overdue again for another trip.
And I guess if you go to the Philippines, they'll force you to go to Indonesia also. Does your family won't let you?
A lot of it is the money and cost. It's like it was in 2008, I think $15,000 round trip or something like that. And also the trip is very long. It's about 24 to 26 hours each way. So that's quite a schlep.
And also now just thinking about getting on a plane to anywhere, let alone.
No, I'd rather ride in cargo and cryogenic suspension than actually ride in the passenger cabin.
Exactly.
Wow. By the way, Perry says, happy 4th. Philippines Independence Day from USA was July 4th, 1946. I did not know that.
Actually, I think we celebrated on June 12th now, because I think July 4th stems from the first the first Filipino Republic in 1898 or so. I have to look that up, but I think that we actually celebrated on June 12th. And
that would be very, that'd be very
interesting. New York City is on June 5th. Otherwise, we would be fighting with the Puerto Ricans. Just Puerto Rican Day parade is around the same time, so we assign ourselves different weekends for that.
Thank you. Gail says this is a fantastic discussion. Thank you all. And Neil's quoting Rahadyan, he says, we shouldn't be colorblind. We should be color aware. That's really, I've not heard that before. I think that's beautiful. Mark says that the United States is the team that got rich because of wealth and position. It often makes the mistake of thinking that being the leader means that there is nothing left to learn and no wisdom to gain from its elders, other nations. And Gare Bear says exactly, Tachiada, and well said. I don't know what, but that's okay. I was agreeing with everything.
It's all good.
So, and Neil says, America is a work in progress. Let's celebrate it as we build it. Absolutely important point. And Tachi, over to you.
So I think that what happens is in society, the loudest voices are always the ones that are heard. And it feels like because they're the loudest voices that there are many voices. And I'd like to think that they are not the majority. In fact, I know, it's not even I'd like to think, I know they're not the majority. These loud and wrong, not only loud, but they're loud and wrong voices. So we just have to be hopeful in the fact that they are not the majority, that there are more people that want to see this experiment we call America succeed in a better direction than those who don't. So I'm hopeful because of youth, as I said, who are doing all sorts of things in terms of mobilizing and showing that they're tired and this is the way it's going to be, and are hopefully going to send this, not just this country, but this earth in a better direction. And also for the things that you do, Sree. I mean, I am, first of all, blown away by the way you have leveled up the entire production of New York Times, from having your phone all the way to now using an encoder. I am blown away. And the level of audience, level of guests you bring on, the new shows that you have, it all shows that you and the team are interested in critical thought and critical thinking. And that is the only way that we'll move forward through these conversations and putting it out there. So I'm hopeful because of the stuff you do as well.
Well, thank you. And remind us how people can find all your shows, because you are, doing 3 shows a week right there.
Yeah, I'm on every day. So almost, it seems like. So really quick, I want to be you when I grow up, Sree. So really quickly, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Periscope, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and WJMSradio.com is Mediascope, Media Tech and Pop Culture. Thursdays at around 3, my producer, MC Curtis, and I do And We're Live. That's where we talk about using video and live stream for your business and beyond. Same platforms plus YouTube. I am one half of the TV Twins on TV channeling, and we talk about TV reviews, TV, film, and entertainment news. Fridays, I am on with I'm the media person with the Biz Chicks on Facebook Live and Periscope. And anybody who wants to reach me at Tachiada is fine. But I also love Instagram, and I am at @DR_Tachi.
Excellent. Wow. That just even keeping track of all your things is hard. Just follow Tachiada at Tachiada on Twitter, on @_Tachi on Instagram, and you'll know when she's live. Jonathan says a different and intriguing way to spend the 4th. Thank you. It was for me too. And Gail says, a fantastic discussion. Jeanette says, love Indonesia. Bali is extraordinary. And Neil says, thank you for the kind words about the New York Times, the read along. We appreciate that. Now is time for us to say their names, as we have been doing every single day on this show since I was told to do so by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. And we use, as you've seen before, this very touching portrait by Titus Kaffer on the cover of Time magazine of a mother and her child taken away from her, and to juxtapose it with this picture of a young George Floyd and his mother, Larcinia, who would die 2 years almost to the day before George would be killed. And now they're buried next to each other. I'm now going to show us the names that the Time magazine issue had, and I'm going to ask Tachi to start us off, read a few names, and then pause, and Rahadyan will take over, and then you can switch back and forth until we're done. I'm going to just listen today. So let's get started.
Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley.
Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland.
Darius Stewart, Samuel DeBose, Janet Wilson, Kaylin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Joseph Mann.
Terrence Crutcher, Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Stefan Clark, Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose.
Botham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson, Michael Dean, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for reading those names. And to that list, we must add Rayshard Brooks and so many other names going all the way back to Emmett Till and countless others whose names we will never know. We also want to point out that one of our guests on our show who was with us, Ryan Boudou, after the death of George Floyd, came out not just to talk about the killing of his brother in police custody at the age of 32, Ravi Boudou, but he also called out South Asians for their own silence and racism in this country. So this wasn't just him lamenting the death of his own brother, but also saying that South Asians in this country, many of them are silent or racist in the way they behave towards African-American people. And it was a very moving episode. You folks can find it. All our archives are on youtube.com/SreeNet, and you can see all the stories. So please, that was episode number 103, as you can see. And with that, we will let our guests go. I told them 45 minutes. I lied. It was an hour and 45 minutes.
Fine. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll let you go. Goodbye to Rahadyan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again. I hope and you'll come back.
Morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Tachi, thank you again. Guest time number 2 on our shows. We're very grateful. And thanks for all you do, and rock on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was so grateful to both of them and to all of you for watching. Thank you for making the show what it is, a lifeline for me, something that's helpful to me and to our global community. We're also very grateful to Scroll.in, one of India's largest and best independent news, culture, and information websites. And by the way, they do all kinds of great coverage, including more jazz than you would expect in an Indian publication, because the editors care about culture and global culture, as it is at Scroll.in or Scroll_in on Twitter. Big thanks again to our sponsors, to Rutgers Global Entrepreneurship Experience, a virtual teen camp, 20% off with the code SREE, globalentrepreneurshipexperience.org. We're also very grateful to our sponsors at Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, a free certification class now available. It's about 2 hours of work, mrac.co/social, and you can do it in 2 hours or 2 days or 2 months. Free certification, mrac.co/social. And we also want to point out our 2 shows tomorrow. We have our New York Times read-along with Trish Hall, former editor of the New York Times op-ed page and author of Writing to Persuade, and that's at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we have our Doctor show, which will take place at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hi. Hi.
The video's having some issue, but you can all watch the episode. Will be playing on tomorrow's, it's Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern, and tomorrow's a greatest hits show for the holiday, but on July 12th, they'll be back, Dr. Sujana and Dr. Marina, with Dr. Quinn Capers IV and Dr. Susmita Pati. And Dr. Capers will be the first gentleman to be on the show, which emphasizes the power of women in healthcare and education and medicine. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We're always looking for guest ideas, for speakers, for sponsors. If you know anyone who would like to help us out with any of those things, please tell them about this show. We want to show you some of the stats about our show. This is the first 75 guests. Let me find the poster for our first 100 shows. We had 201 guests, 124 of them women, 45 cities, 12 countries of speakers, more than 1 million viewers, 60 million social impressions. Get behind us and support us as you have been. We're very grateful. Sree@Sree.net. Please email me. We'd love to see you again. And just a couple more comments that are coming in. Mark says, thank you all. Great. The other Mark says, great show. Please do this again. Thank you, Gail. We will. And I do want to show you some upcoming shows we have, because we got tomorrow a very special show, Positivity with the Krybics. And who are the Krybics? You are seeing on screen. The Krybics are Dr. Arti Krybik, who is Arti for Congress, running for Congress in Tuesday's New Jersey primary election against a Democrat who is the most consistent voter with President Trump among the Democrats. And Dr. Thomas Krybik, a neurologist, will also be with us. And Steve Taylor says, thank you so much for being there for all of us. And Tachi says, thanks for having us. She was great, wasn't she? And it was just so much fun to listen, so much depth in the show. Many thanks to your engaging and wise guests, Rahadyan and Tachi. Love Mediascope, Tachi. I want to check out your other shows too. And we're just so grateful to everyone. Let's tell you about a couple of other shows that are coming up. On Monday, we have Social Media and Politics, and that's at noon with Tristan Hotham, who is an expert on the role of social media in campaigns. So we'll be talking about a lot of what's happening in politics. And then we go all the way back to Hamilton Today, which is a look at Hamilton and the law, a book about Hamilton and the law, reading today's most contentious legal issues through the hit musical Hamilton, which of course you know is debuted worldwide yesterday on Disney+. I have not seen it yet, but I look forward to discussing this on Wednesday night here in New York City. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. We're very grateful to you for your time, your attention, your interest, and please do email me, Sree@Sree.net, and connect with me on Twitter @Sree, Instagram SreeNet, and on YouTube SreeNet for our entire archives of the New York Times Read Along and this show, The COVID Show. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.